Yes, okay. You can ask me about Cedric still. We're going to get over this. We're going to get over and move past the fact that I said that Cedric was terrible. We're going to move past that. We're going to talk about it today. But I'm sick of the tweets, guys. You need to just let me. You need to let me sleep. This is not fair. It's not fair. I've got a 9-hour shift today, and I do not want people tweeting me about Cedric. So just let it go. Hello and welcome to the Goon Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast, where we're joined by a couple of guests after every league game to discuss what has been a magical turnaround, a justification of sorts, as what we witnessed yesterday. I'm joined by two guests today to talk about the fixture of yesterday. First of all, it's Cedric. Owen, sorry mate, how are you doing? Are you well? You good?
I'm so happy that I could make this show. You know that I actually rearranged a lot to make it to this show, and now it has just paid off after that performance from the one and only Cedric last night. And this talk about living it down, you can quit that, buddy. This is going to go on for a while, I'd expect.
Yeah, I opened my phone. I put my phone on to do not disturb last night because I got so many DMs and tweets about Cedric. I was just like, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Adam, how you doing, mate? Are you well from the TFO show?
I'm very good. I'm very, very good. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Yes, awesome, mate. Awesome. I'm going to start with you, Adam. Yesterday's game, obviously, I'm not going to start with you, Adam, because you're gone. That was it.
That's good start.
Thank you, Adam, for joining us. Really appreciate your time today, and we'll see you again next time. Adam will be back, I'm sure. He's just having connectivity issues. He's looking at his phone like, what's going on? Hold on. He's back.
What's going on? Anyway,
I was literally mid-question, and I was like, and what do you think, Adam? And you just left, and it was the perfect timing. Jesus Christ. Talk to me about yesterday, Adam. As I said, it was a lot of rotation on Saturday.
Yep.
A lot of people complained about that. And, I mean, what are you feeling? Was it justified? Was it the right decision? Or are you still a bit like, it kind of makes up for it, but I'm still frustrated?
Well, I think it depends on where you believe Arsenal's priorities lie this season. If you want another cup run, and perhaps we win it and we become the record holders again and again and again, that's absolutely fine. But I preferred sustained success. And for me, that means that the league is more important. Are we able to be good and beat other teams over a 38-game season? And I'd much prefer us to beat Southampton in the league rather than beat Southampton in a cup, because cups don't seem to really mean anything, as we can see by our success last season and the fact that we're in a relegation battle this season. So yeah, I'm loving the fact that I saw Arteta learn from his mistakes. I'm loving the fact that I saw some of Arsenal's most maligned players look fantastic. Xhaka playing forward passes. What's that all about? Pepe megging people and actually contributing to the game across 90 minutes. What's that all about? I don't know. It seems as though I'm in an alternate universe, and I love it because we've spoken so many times about how bad Arsenal are and the things that need to be improved. And I'm seeing a man in Arteta who seems to be learning from his mistakes, and taking Arsenal a step closer to where we know we should be to enable us to compete. So, yeah, for me, happy with the league victory over Southampton. Not really paying too much attention over the FA Cup defeat because we've got bigger issues to deal with.
Yeah. Before I just switch over to Owen, a big thank you to Jashar's joining up as a member. You have joined up as a Plus member, so you get access to the show that I did with John the other day for the members, which is Owen was talking to me before the show and said it was, these are Owen's words, not mine, fantastic. So there you go. I mean, go check out the show with John. We talked a lot about social stuff. It got a little political at times, which was weird. But that's what happens when you have John on. He's very averse in the world of that. Dragan agrees with you, Adam. He says, hey, Tom, did you notice Xhaka in playing great form? The most of his passes are forward, through ball for Lacazette at the start of the game, and later before Lacazette's assist, also Xhaka played a quick forward pass for that as well. And to be fair, I've always kind of said that he needs to work on it in terms of the central kind of his game, because he's really good at passing forwards to the wide areas, like with Tierney running onto those passes. But centrally is sort of something that he needs to add a little bit more frequently to his game, and he certainly did that. Callum Crichton, thank you so much for the donation, mate. He says, sorry, unpopular opinion, but I really like Pepe and would like to see him play down the middle. Think he would be really good there. P.S. Love the shows, man. Honestly, really kept me going. Thank you. Thank you, mate. Owen, Pepe, let's talk about him. Scored a goal, got us back into the game. Big boost of confidence. I was surprised he started. I really was kind of surprised. I was expecting Martinelli to start the game. He didn't. And he was on the left, which we've talked about on the show quite a few times and said that on the right, he's so predictable. He's so easy to defend against that we need to change things up. I still kind of said that £72 million on a player that you need to squeeze into a position because it's not working on the right is a little bit much, but we've got him. We've got to try and do what we can with him. And we did.
Yeah, I think it's really just a case of a sort of last-ditch effort from the club to try and make that investment work. I'll be honest with you, it was a bit of a nightmare start, I thought, for Pepe. I think he was a joint responsibility with Leno for that first goal. He sort of went missing in terms of his defensive duties from that set piece. And then we had a couple of sort of scuffed efforts over the bar and losing possession. And it was actually just before the goal that I had sort of verbally screamed at the TV that he was useless. And then, as always, he sort of made me eat my words. But look, I think when you talk about, sorry, I forgot your name, who put the super chat in about playing. Callum mentioned there about Pepe playing down the middle. Possibly it could work, but what I would say is you can't sort of shift things about just to accommodate people if there's better options, alternative options there, and the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, Aubameyang and Lacazette would all be ahead of him, I would say. So in terms of him playing down the middle, I don't see it myself. I don't see him, some people call for him in that number 10 role. I definitely don't see that. But what I will say is that putting him down the left, I think what it does is it removes a lot of the thinking out of his play. You know, when he's coming down the right, he's thinking about cutting in, he's thinking about how he's going to beat a man. Whereas literally when you seen yesterday how the simplicity of that move, it was literally something that he does very well, which is running behind into the channels and a brilliant ball from Saka. And it was, and this is what I mean by it removed the thinking out of it. Just an instinctual finish, swing your foot at it, put it across goal. And there's nothing fancy about it. And I think that's what really benefits him from playing from the left. The only problem, again, is that are you accommodating him? I still don't see Nicola Pepe in that position making moves into the side with the competition that he has in that position. You know, you've got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, again, another significant investment, and the club captain playing in that position and probably playing better than he has done, especially within the last couple of games. And then you've got Gabriel Martinelli, who I still think is going to light the league on fire when he gets a consistent run of games. So it's a bit of a tricky situation with Nicola Pepe. What I will say is it's one game. Another thing that I was thinking as well, sort of towards the end of the game, and I was thinking that he could be good in a position he can't. But he's very much like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang in the sense that he will not control a game for 90 minutes. He's a sporadic player where he comes up with moments of brilliance throughout the game. Now, I think you can afford to have one of those players within your side. I don't think you can afford to have two. And I think Aubameyang is our sporadic moment player. So yeah. I think it's a difficult avenue for him to break into the team. The only thing that I compare, the most realistic situation that I can think, and the best situation for us, is that he does well when he's given the chance. He raises that value, and eventually he gets moved on, because I just really don't see this investment working out stylistically for the club.
Tactically, I think that as a left footer on that side, he was placed there because we didn't have Tierney and we didn't have that left footer on the left hand side. Adam, you clearly agree, so talk me through that.
I was just thinking it as Owen said it. I think I can't remember where I read it, but I think once upon a time I saw something that Pep likes his wingers to be infield and his fullbacks to be out wide, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think Arteta has the same type of thinking. And I don't see Pepe ever playing on that wing if Tierney's there, because it would be two players who would be seeking to go on the outside and hit the byline. So yeah, I was just agreeing with you on that point. I don't see that happening at all when Tierney's back.
Yeah, no, I think when Tierney's back, that it will. I think if Tierney was fit, we probably would have seen Martinelli play over Pepe, which we can say about. We're glad that it didn't happen because we won the game and Cedric had an excellent game, and we'll come on to Cedric in a bit. Don't worry, we will talk about it. But yeah, I agree with you in that sense. Jashar is our new member, says, Tom, I think Pepe is probably the most clinical finisher in front of goal. And it's something that I've talked about, is that his clinical finishing is excellent. Like when he gets into positions to score goals, he is very composed and takes them. Outside the box, it's more 50-50 and probably even less than that, to be fair. But actually in those one-on-one opportunities where he can take a strike at goal, he is clinical. But we just don't put him into those positions enough during the games, and we don't get him into those because he's so far back and so reserved that he's got to take on about 5 players before he can even get to goal. So if we can start playing him in behind, like we did with Granit Xhaka, then we might see a better Nicola Pepe. And that's how obviously he done so well at Lille, is because he was played in behind to run at goal on the counter-attack and have many less players, or less and less players rather, in front of him to take on. We had another super chat. Thank you, Callum. You're very generous this morning. You must have had a wonderful evening of gambling. Says, I see he is that striker. He's really good finisher from one-on-one and makes really good space, better than Lacazette, as that I just don't see kind of that potential for it long term. He's only 25 as well. Oh, sorry, he said he does see that potential long term for him as a possible central striker. So maybe it's something we'll see. I don't see Lacazette, who of course had Adam an amazing chance minutes into the game. And I mean, I was doing the watch along with Hugh, and as I had an Amazon delivery arrive, which also revealed to the entire thousands of people that was watching Hugh's watch along that I in fact have a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer doorbell, which is not set by me but is set by the missus right now, but haven't changed it yet. So that went off during the stream, which was fantastic. Went to get the parcel, came back, and I hear in the ears Hugh is screaming because Lacazette has missed an absolutely massive chance, made worse then by the fact that they went up the other end and scored.
Yeah, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. I think that's the best and worst of Lacazette. We see him score goals and hot pin defenders, but then we see him miss one-on-ones. And I think this season alone, I think back to that Liverpool chance, or was it last season? It all just rose into one. That Liverpool game we played at Anfield, where
this season, yeah,
he could have won us the game, but he just hit it straight at Alisson. I don't know if he tried to be too cute with the finish by putting it through the keeper's legs yesterday, but there was such a gaping size of the goal either side of the keeper, and he just didn't put it there. So, yeah, I think Lacazette is frustrating for those reasons, because he does the hold-up play very well for someone of his stature. But then when it comes to the goal-scoring side of it, he could just make things so much simpler by putting his foot through it there or there, and he probably scored. But yeah, I think Lacazette, he's good for now, but long term, I don't know if I see Pepe doing that job. But yeah, I think we'll need an upgrade at some point.
There's nothing kind of deft about Lacazette. He is all or nothing. Like the goals that he scores when he's back to goal, turns and smashes in the top corner. He's accurate and he's got a powerful strike, but there's no finesse necessarily about his game. And I think that is certainly something that was kind of shown in that finish in the first half. Obviously, his goal that he scored later was put on a plate to him by Saka, who Eoin, again, Saka, just an unbelievable talent, has now scored more goals than any other teenager combined in the Premier League, which is incredible. There was a lot of people in the chat yesterday talking about Foden and Foden and someone else, Callum Hudson-Odoi, but they're both 20 now, and Saka is younger than both of those players. But between him and Foden, he is up there as easily kind of the best young player in the Premier League, on form with Foden right now, surely.
Oh, absolutely. And I would even go as much to say in Europe, he would be one of the top talents in Europe at the minute. Just to touch on, even just before I move on to Saka, something Adam was mentioning there about the Lacazette miss. And as frustrating as it was to see, I actually think that it set the tempo for the game. And I think sometimes some of our players, especially players like Lacazette, they need that moment. They need that early on where they kind of see that it's a back and forth, it's an open game, and it gets them riled up. So I actually took that as a positive. I think that we often see with Lacazette that within the first minute, 2-3 minutes of a game, what type of game Lacazette's going to have. He's the type of player that needs a good start. So I enjoyed seeing that. But in terms of Saka, it's insane when I think it just proves my point, and I know Saka's sort of like an enigma. He's an outlier to the rest, but it really backs. Thanks. It really backs up. I think what I've been saying about that. I think that often we try to sort of mummy cuddle these players too much. The likes of Reece Nelson, Joe Willock, and Eddie Nketiah, even players at other teams get mummy cuddled, and I think that this is the standard. You seen it from Gabriel Martinelli, you're seeing it from Emile Smith-Rowe, and you're seeing it most of all from Bukayo Saka. And the difference between the players I previously mentioned and Bukayo Saka is how clinical he can be under pressure. The ability to take the ball there and understand that he has the time to take it around the keeper and the composure to calmly finish. And not only that, his link-up play and his positional discipline are fantastic. I think somebody asked you, I think it was yourself on the podcast yesterday. Oh, Tom's gone. Somebody mentioned to him that a weakness in Saka's game, and I can't say it. I know, man. You can change those settings on that thing. I think you can go into your mouse settings and change the button configuration. That's a topic for another time. Somebody asked you on your show yesterday about a weakness in Saka's game, and I really can't see any weaknesses. I think you hit the nail on the head with the only one he could really improve on is that sort of set piece delivery. But the problem now in nowadays football is I understand that there's been contracts signed, and this isn't just with Saka, this is with multiple players within our squad now. The other players I mentioned, Gabriel Martinelli, Emile Smith-Rowe, is that big European clubs come sniffing early, and I think that if we stay in the position that we're in at the minute, struggling to make it into those sort of European places, let alone Champions League places, struggling to climb the league, I just think we're going to have such a difficult time keeping hold of these young players. Probably Saka less so than maybe a Martinelli, but it's so vital, especially to the type of project that Mikel Arteta is trying to build at this club, that we keep hold of these players and build around these players. And this is what I get frustrated about when I see maybe the likes of Nicola Pepe, maybe hard to argue, and injuries taken into account. Well, I'm only presuming that the players are fit, but it's when I get frustrated when I see people being played like Willian or Pepe over the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, because these are the players that we really need to be building our future around. And I think the moves that we're starting to make in the transfer window sort of lead to that. The likes of Martin Odegaard, smart business there. So it's great to see the club taking a more useful approach and a long-term fix rather than just throwing money at the short term.
I think Martinelli himself, there's this rhetoric that I've seen on social media kind of push that Arteta doesn't rate him, which I find strange. Because if he didn't rate him, he wouldn't have trusted him in the game against Chelsea, where he started and absolutely smashed it. He had Willian and Pepe, I believe, but he had Pepe on the bench that he could have played instead, and he chose to play Martinelli. He played him then against Brighton in the next game. I think there's been times where he was going to be brought on, obviously, against Southampton yesterday, but because of the injury to Emile Smith-Rowe, which we'll talk about in a bit, he decided to bring on Willian, who's more of a natural central player than Martinelli can. And he's not natural there, but he's more orthodox than what Martinelli would be. So that made more sense. I think we will see more of Martinelli for sure off the bench. And I think that ultimately, the thing about Martinelli, he's missed kind of the section of the season where he was going to get more of the minutes. He's still very, very young. He would have played arguably all of the Europa League group games at that stage. I think a lot of people are looking at kind of the emergence of Smith-Rowe, the emergence of Saka again from building on from last season, and thinking that Martinelli's somehow going to get left behind. I don't think that's going to happen. He's still incredibly young and still does need to develop, and we just can't start expecting 19-year-old after 19-year-old to be starting week in, week out at Arsenal. It is going to take time for these guys to integrate, and I would just say chill. We signed a new contract last season. It's not like he's running out. It's not like a Balogun situation. So I don't buy into that at all.
He's being protected, isn't he?
Yeah, he's come back from a big injury as well, which is huge for him. Adam, let's talk about the man of the hour, which of course is Cedric. He played at left back yesterday because Tierney wasn't fit, and before the game, I don't know if you felt the same. Just not seeing Tierney on the team sheet made me go into a bit of a panic, thinking that our left-hand side was going to be effectively useless, but it wasn't. Arguably, Cedric being on the left made our right-hand side weirdly better with the passes that he was able to play over and switch the play, which Tierney doesn't necessarily do. It's not part of his game. I thought we suffered in some areas defensively when he was kind of caught further up the pitch. There was a lot of space on the left-hand side, but that is just nitpicking because he was really good again.
He was. One word for his performance yesterday, gobsmacked. I didn't know that he had passes like that in his locker. When I saw him shaping to switch it to Saka for the third goal, I believe it was, I said, don't do it, Cedric, please. Please, you don't have it in your locker. And then next thing I know, we're 3-1 up. And it's not only that, he was crossing with his weaker foot, taking players on, doing step overs in the Southampton box. And I said, where's this guy been the entire time? I think it is a bit of a problem that he is our backup left back. And I do think long term or even medium term, I guess that might become a problem. But I do think that he played a blinder yesterday. And I wonder what his motivations were. Is it because he was playing Southampton, his former club, and he wanted to kind of play up to that a little bit? I don't know. But he was really, really, really good yesterday. And I can't praise him enough for the effort and the skill in his performance. And had it not been for Saka getting a goal and an assist, he would have been my man of the match.
Yeah. There's some interesting news that's just come through. I don't know if anyone's seeing it, but apparently Odegaard will not be given number 10. He will be given the number 11 shirt, which is... I'm a little bit happy about that. In a way, I kind of want to see that number 10 shirt earned and taken, obviously. And Odegaard is a guy on loan. And I think also what it shows is that the club value that number as well, in a way. And it is not just going to be handed out willy-nilly. Obviously, if Emile Smith-Rowe has an excellent end to the season, he's number 32. There is all the hope in the world that he gets promoted to the first team on this regular basis that he is. And that maybe he takes that number 10 in the future. But we'll have to wait and see. That's some interesting news. We will cover Odegaard either a little bit later or in another show. Want to stick a little bit with, obviously, Southampton still. Now, Owen, on Cedric, if Tierney is therefore fit for Man United, which is obviously would be a big plus for us. And I don't think anyone's saying if Tierney is fit, you start Cedric at left-back over Tierney still because he's such an important player. But... I think that what you would say is that Cedric would then switch to the right and supersede Bellerin right now.
Yeah, and I don't think that's just to the credit of Cedric. I think that's to the sort of detriment of Bellerin as well. I think that he
hit me with these Bellerin shots.
I know. Look, man, I've said it before. I really like Bellerin. I do. I don't have a dislike for him at all. I have questions around him sometimes as a footballer in patches, but overall I think he's quite a decent right back and naturally probably our best right back at the club in terms of his natural ability. But in terms of current form and what they're adding to the squad, yeah, I think Cedric has to come in. And it's funny because we talk about competition for places, and I always think that there's too much emphasis put on an equal level of ability to be competing for a position. I think that you need players in your squad, people like El Nani, people like Cedric, who we heard Mikel Arteta praise for his professionalism while he was out of the squad and while he was sort of lacking those minutes this season. And I think that you need them people who are sort of happy to play a second fiddle. But it doesn't mean that when they do earn themselves a chance that they don't get that chance. And I think, to be honest with you as well, over maybe the last 2 games, I think that if it wasn't for Rob Holding, I think that Bellerin would have been made a mockery of. There was a minute. I don't like doing this, pulling up minutes in certain incidents, but there was a thing around the 24th, 25th minute where they were coming down our left hand side on the attack, and Hector Bellerin stood off while he was a free man. And I mean, he didn't just stand off 2-3 yards. I mean, it was about 15-20 yards of space, and he sort of jockeyed back, confused, trying to mark Rob Holding's man. And I think that's a part that Hector Bellerin struggles with, that Cedric doesn't. I think his defensive side of the game is much stronger, and I think that in the game against Man United, who are on form at the minute, I think that Cedric's the safe pick. So yeah, I would agree that he come in. And he almost scored an absolute banger too. So he does have a bit of attacking.
That strike! You just saw him open the body up, and then with just the cutting across the ball, and I was gutted that went just ever so slightly wide because it was a great strike, and it reminded me of Benjamin Pavard's in the World Cup from the other side of the pitch where it went across. I think it was against Uruguay that goal. But yeah, it was just a moment where I really wanted to see it go in. Adam, another player that was excellent, came off towards the end, and fingers crossed isn't too bad. Is Thomas Partey. I put the tweet out this morning, the tweet that I put out in the summer of 2020, saying that Aouar improves us, but Partey transforms us. And that is just like, he just makes Arsenal tick so much better. It makes us tick. It makes in a way that it harks back to what Santi Cazorla used to do for Arsenal. And he's a very, very different player. But the impact on how he progresses the ball forwards is so similar to what Santi used to do for us.
Mm-hmm. That's a very philosophical tweet you put out, Tom.
I'm very deep at times.
I completely agree with you, man. I think Thomas Partey is. I hate the fact that sort of rival fans think that Arsenal fans tend to speak or hype up the players more than they deserve. But Thomas Partey is one where the credit is all deserved. We've seen him play for Atletico. We've seen him dominate there in the Champions League, in La Liga, in the Europa League as well, and play multiple positions at Atletico as well. And for him to come to Arsenal, I thought was a real coup. And here we are seeing him play simple passes, seeing him drive the ball forward with dribbling, see him fight fires, which I've not seen an Arsenal midfielder or deep line midfielder do for ages. See him put passes forward, and it's something I didn't even think he had in his locker. I didn't even think he had long raking passes. I didn't think he was able to do that, or that would be a part of his game. But here we are, he's creating goals, he's stopping them at the other end, and I really believe that he is a player who, as you say, transforms us. So I look forward to the partnership that he develops with Granit Xhaka, because that's another thing I've always said, that Xhaka needed someone with legs in order to sort of amplify and bring out the best in his game. And I think now we're seeing the best of Granit Xhaka, we're seeing the best of Thomas Partey, and long may it continue. I just pray that Partey isn't injured, because he played against Manchester United at Old Trafford, and we won that game because of his legs. And I just hope that he's available for the coming games too.
Yeah, it doubles our chances. Go on, Owen. Sorry.
No, it was just a question for you lads that I was sort of pondering in the early hours of this morning on my drive home from work. Was so look at our injuries this season. Okay, we've got Aubameyang was out with a tight calf. Kieran Tierney has been out on multiple occasions with a tight calf. Emile Smith-Rowe with calves. Thomas Partey calves. Pablo Mari calf. Does there need to be sort of some in-house investigation done as to why there's such repetition of the same injury with multiple players? Or do you think it sort of contributes down to the fact that we lacked a pre-season and fixture congestion?
I mean, Arsenal players have notoriously suffered from injuries throughout the time coming to Arsenal, players that were never injured before. Danny Welbeck comes to mind, that his knee injuries that he suffered at Arsenal, never really had issues before he came. Partey is another one, never had issues. Ozil barely missed a game for Real Madrid when he was there. He came to Arsenal and missed, we know as very well, a lot of games. So it's something that I've written about, and I've said that Arsenal need to look into why this keeps happening. We have hired a couple of new members of the medical staff this season. So whether or not that has any impact, or obviously if it's on, there's always been kind of this myth. I don't know if it's a myth because there's so much evidence now, but about London Colney's pitches being too hard and that contributing to possible injuries, which I obviously it's just pure speculation, but we are, as Out and Out Gunners podcast says, farming calves right now. Farming these calves. Oh, as you were talking, I was thinking, can I find a cow joke somewhere? But I couldn't quite come up with that. In itself is good enough. Anyway, the other guy that came off, which again we hope is going to be fine, is Smith-Rowe. Came off. It looked minor. It just looked like he was shattered, and it also kind of links in with what Arteta spoke about after the game, where he talked about how he couldn't pick 5 players. So all that kind of debate and argument about why he rotated seems to be very much enforced. What do you make of the Smith Rowe injury, and are you worried, for instance, if he's not going to be available?
I'd be concerned in the sense of how influential he's been to the system and how key he is in making that system work. In terms of the rotations, that I agree completely. It completely backs it up, and I think that, as Adam mentioned earlier, it's just about prioritising the competitions. And I know it's the sort of die-hard fan thing to turn around and say, we should be going for every single competition that we're in, and we want to win everything and should be striving to achieve those targets. But the reality is that we don't have the depth to compete in 3 competitions consistently. And to be honest with you, I think that we struggle to have the depth to compete in 2 competitions consistently, at a good rate. I think that it's almost at the point now where Mikel Arteta probably needs to pick a lane and stick to it in terms of which competition he wants to go full on at. We're seeing with Unai Emery what happens when you think you're safe and you think you've got a chance, and you start doing needless squad rotation at important times of the season. So, but back to with the Smith Rowe thing, I wouldn't be overly concerned because he walked off the pitch. He didn't look overly uncomfortable on it. I think it was precautionary, which again is a positive step. It was only maybe a couple of months ago that we were criticising Mikel Arteta for pushing David Luiz back on with a head injury and trying to push Partey back on and leaving players out in the pitch after they'd picked up knocks. And I think that what we seen yesterday with Partey and with Emile Smith Rowe was just precaution, knowing that United game's coming up, knowing how valuable those players in particular are to the system. The only thing you would say is that this emphasises why the club have gone for Ødegaard, because it's so funny that, number one, a deal that is makes so much financial sense in a position that we lack bodies has actually caused some controversy within the fan base, and I just don't understand how people can look at the negative side. As much as I have said earlier about that the age of these players, that they don't need nurtured, they still can't be overworked. Emile Smith Rowe isn't used to the fixture congestion that we have within a season, so it's important to have a body in there to take the pressure off him and provide some competition as well, because the last thing you want is somebody to have the assumption that they have a free walk into the team sheet every week because they're the only player in the position within the squad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think we needed this signing because as soon as Emile Smith Rowe was to go, as soon as there was any knock, as soon as there was any COVID isolation, which is a very realistic threat at the moment, we were going to be, again, devoid of that creativity. Adam, you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Am I missing something? Where's the controversy around Martin Ødegaard? Why would fans not win it?
I'll give you one guess what platform it comes from. It rhymes with Mitter.
Okay. Yeah, fine. But what's the justification?
Just that he's young and that he inexperienced, hasn't been playing. Yeah. And then not only that people. This is another really frustrating thing, and this is one of the most repeated arguments I've seen, is that he might block the path for Emile Smith Rowe, and it's like, I'm sorry. They're 2 players of a similar age, a similar profile, and I would consider probably a similar ability. So whoever emerges out of that battle as superior is only for the betterment of the club. So why do you care? We aren't here to support one player or another. If he blows Emile Smith Rowe out of the water and walks away with 10, 15 assists out of the end of the season, that's only for the betterment of the club.
Of course, yeah.
When you look at like Bellerin, when he was a similar age to say Emile Smith Rowe and breaking into the Arsenal team, and we all kind of thought and was looking at Bellerin at that age thinking we've got our right back sorted for the next 10 years because he would look so good and he only looked like he was going to get better. And the problem with that position is we never added competition for Bellerin. We never pushed him. And I know he's had injuries and stuff, but even prior to those injuries, we never pushed Bellerin's position. If we don't push Emile Smith Rowe, if we don't give him that incentive to keep pushing himself, keep developing, keep getting better, keep earning that place, he will get comfortable. And I know the mentality of the player sounds great, but so did the mentality of Bellerin back then. The mentality of Bellerin, I still feel, sounds good from what Bellerin talks about. But I just feel like he's not been pushed enough. I felt the same about kind of Alex Iwobi, who easily got into the Arsenal team too often, and we never pushed that position either. And eventually he's moved on. We got to get very good fee for him. But I don't think he ever was going to progress into the certain player that we needed. And there are just positions on the pitch that you need to keep seeing these competitions put in. Olivier Giroud was made too comfortable at Arsenal as well. And when, obviously, we brought in a Lacazette, he then left 6 months later to join another club with equal competition, which made no sense. But it's just an area of the pitch that you cannot afford to just rest on your laurels about, and it needs to be one that we push forward. Anyway, let's last sort of 10 minutes before we get to user questions. Look ahead to Manchester United at the weekend. Huge game. They are in really, really good form. Adam, talk to me about how you're feeling, because Arsenal could not have positioned themselves kind of better, really. We have turned our form around. We beat them at Old Trafford when both sides were also kind of struggling, us definitely more so than them. But they have turned a corner this season and are pushing for a title challenge. How are you feeling ahead of that game?
Bro, I don't know. I want a victory. I'd love to say we did the double over Manchester United. I'd love to put a dent in their title aspirations. But yeah, I don't know. With the way Manchester United are playing, they've really impressed me. I'd be the first in line to hate Manchester United, to say that Bruno's not a player, to say that Pogba hasn't turned his form around. But I've been watching them with bated breath, and they've done really, really well. They always seem to find a way to come back from the brink of a defeat. They seem to have strength in depth now overnight. Rashford's playing out of his skin. Martial, who I think is a little bit, but he's doing okay. As I say, Pogba's performing. So I think it's going to be a really different and difficult game in comparison to the one that we played at Old Trafford. I think for Arsenal, I think the bare minimum is to make sure we don't get embarrassed. I don't want us to come out of that thinking, okay, we're right back to square one. All that progress that we think we've made over the past couple of weeks is now gone. I would just like us to, I guess, if we lose, make it a last ditch winner or something like that. And if we win, I would still implore Arsenal fans not to get too excited, not to think that this means that we've turned the corner. We're all of a sudden going to compete for top four or win the league, but just take it game by game, a step-by-step approach, and believe that we're making strides towards the progress long-term that we know we need.
Yeah, I think you sum it up really well. It is, if Arsenal comes out of this game without a victory, I'm not going to suddenly be like, oh my God, the worst thing has happened. Yeah. I have to consider the context that we're in. We are in a position where we may have some fitness issues going into this game. I want to see us compete. And even though that we've lost a lot of games this season, 8 already, which is a massive amount for Arsenal. We went through that horrible run. Owen, even during this season, the games against the big teams, one of the things that Arteta has improved about us is we haven't looked meager. We haven't looked like we're rolling over and just taking the defeat. We are competing more in these fixtures. Does that give you confidence in addition to the form players and maybe with the addition of Ødegaard, depending on fitness, that it gives you that boost in the game that we might need?
Yeah, I think since the beginning really of Mikel Arteta's tenure, it's something that he's done very, very well, and I almost think that unlike the sort of the years of Arsene Wenger, I think that we actually perform well against these top sides now, whether the result comes or not. As you say, we're not getting turned over or embarrassed, and it's sort of more against those lower table teams that we tend to struggle with. But going into this game, I think this is a very good game for us to be playing right now. We've picked up 16 points over over last 18, and something that I think as well that the fans need to look at is not only our own team and our own managerial situation. It's look at the other, use them as an example, because the waters were very rocky for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at one point. You know, I think that 99% of people in the neutral fan base expected Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be the first manager to be sacked out of Frank, Mikel and Ole. So you know, they have turned it around. They're in very good form. The one thing I will say is that it's very easy to say this, but to do it is a completely different thing. But I think if you neutralise Bruno Fernandes, you neutralise their system. And I think that we have the perfect player. This is a Thomas Partey game. This is where we deploy Thomas Partey and say, you stick to his arse the entire 90 minutes and you make him useless. And and I think what I would like to say is that I can tell you 100% now that if you were to put a poll out on Twitter or wherever and you were to say what formation you would play, I can guarantee you a substantial amount of the fan base would say revert back to the 3-4-3, sit deep and try and hit them on the break. I actually think that I want to see us come out and be brave in this game, to come out and do what we've been doing, because we've been playing very good attacking football. The one thing I will say is that I hope either Pablo Mari comes back or to stick Gabriel back in. I think that Gabriel has been harshly treated over a shaky comeback game. You know, like people say, I wouldn't put him in, he was shaky on his return, but you can't just, when you're going to leave him out forever, you have to put him back in at some point. And he's been our best defender throughout the entire season. Maybe the stiff competition for Rob Holding, because especially against the team with the pace and how clinical United are, the last thing I want to see is David Luiz within that defence. I think he was an absolute calamity last night. You know, I have a 1-year-old daughter and she's just started walking, and when she's walking around the house, I'd be crapping myself looking around going, she's going to cave her head in, she's going to fall, she's going to and that's what it was like watching David Luiz. I was just waiting for something to go wrong, and it almost did. And and we all know that he lets us down in these big games. So I think that this could be a springboard for the rest of the season. I know that's such a cliche saying to come out with, but I think that if we can pull a result off, a decent result, you know, a draw or a win against United, I think that's over probably our most unfavourable fixture for the next while. So yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm going to have a look at Arsenal's kind of run. So I think that we've had quite kind fixtures, and we're about to hit a string of difficult ones. We've got Man United at home. We then go to Wolves, which is, I know they're not having the best of seasons, but it's never an easy place. And of course, we did lose to them at the Emirates during our bad run. We then got Aston Villa away, another side that we lost to on our run at the Emirates this season. Then we play Leeds at home, and we drew 0-0. So we've got like quite a few redemption games coming up, which is good. And then the really tough games start, because Benfica's double header is interspliced between a Man City at home and a Leicester away. So it's going to be tough. It's going to get really tricky, and it will be the making or breaking of Arsenal's season over February. It's going to be such a tricky month for Arsenal to kind of navigate, but February is being targeted as kind of the definition of Arsenal's season. Let's get into your questions for the final 10 to 15 minutes of the show. We've got quite a few, guys, so if we can keep our answers quite brief, that would be appreciated. Daniel Robert Adam says, is Saka the best thing to come out of Hale End since Wilshere, or is he even better?
Yes, he is the most exciting talent to come out of Haaland since Wilshere. Is he going to be better than Wilshere? Depends on if he stays fit.
Yeah, and I mean, we could say that about Wilshere. If Wilshere had stayed fit, maybe he could have been a fantastic player for us. We'll never know. Martino Owen says, with Emile Smith out, would you play the Willie or Odegaard?
Odegaard. I don't want Willian anywhere near the squad. I'm honest.
Even the one-legged Odegaard is better than that.
I'm telling you, man. I know. Don't worry, I'm keeping this short. But I know I get behind anybody that puts on the Arsenal jersey. But there's some points of no return, and to me, not done.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Prince, we kind of answered this question. Is how would you mitigate Bruno Fernandes? And I think it's about sticking Thomas Partey as close to him, or just give Xhaka a little whisper to just kick him. Take the red card, son. Just put him out for the season. Tom says, Man United is a team that plays and doesn't stay back. That's the best kind of opposition for us to play against, which is a really good point, actually. If we can get in behind them, we might be able to find those spaces, which I agree with you, Owen. I think we do need to attack them. Wilson, though, says, why did you have your doubts over Cedric in the first place? My question would be why didn't you have doubts over Cedric in the first place? I think they were obvious. He couldn't get into the Southampton team. That was the biggest kind of reason. Owen, Out and Out Gunners Podcast says, Tom, you are familiar with knee injuries. Oh, sorry. Are you as familiar with knee injuries as Owen is with calf injuries?
Calf injuries. Do you want to know what? I struggled with a lot of calf injuries when I was playing football, but it's because I'm fat and because when you try to push too much weight off on things that aren't supposed to be carrying that much weight, you get injuries. Is this
why I got my ankle injury? Is this what you're explaining now?
No comment. No comment. Laporte.
Laporte. Yeah. Raheel says if Emil Smith, Adam's just got that. If Emil Smith Rowe isn't available for United, who would you play in that position? Considering Ødegaard is not ready to start just yet.
Your only realistic option would be Willian. I don't think he should play. So then I think you have to revert back to the 3-4-3 or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it. I think the formation has to be the replacement for Emil Smith Rowe, if that makes sense.
If anything, that shows you how important Emil Smith Rowe is. That if he's not ready, you change the entire team based around him, which is quite crazy. Just scrolling down to get some more recent questions. Is Leno? Who's Leno? I combined Leno and Manu in the same question. Is Leno world class, Owen?
It's a title I think is thrown about a bit too loosely nowadays. He's on the verge. He could be. I still think there's certain aspects of his game, like his lacklusterness on the ball when he's playing out from the back, and sometimes his distribution can be questionable. But he's top class, put it that way, and I think he's on the verge of becoming world class. But he's definitely, hopefully, we can keep hold of him for a long time.
Oh, I'm so glad the whole Martinez-Leno debate is done and finished and dead and buried. It's so good that that's no longer being discussed. And
until Matt Ryan has a stormer.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's just going to come in and smash it. Oh, dearie me. Brad Davies says, Adam, will Aubameyang be available for Saturday, do you think? Obviously, we don't really know. And what's going to go on with our captain? I love the support the players gave him with Lacazette scoring his goal and showing the run 14 after his celebration. What I mean, without Aubameyang there and the captain issue in itself, is that going to have any kind of impact on Saturday, do you think?
It depends on who fills in. I'm not quite sure who our vice is because I saw Bellerin with the captaincy yesterday.
Saka.
Seen Xhaka with it as well. I'm not quite sure who it's going to be. I know that many Arsenal managers have seen Xhaka as the leader on the pitch. So regardless, I think he'll be shouting his orders and barking at people anyway. As for whether Aubameyang will be available, I have no idea, sir. I don't even know what stuff he needed to sort out.
Yeah, we don't really know.
It could be anything. So I don't know, sir. I'm really sorry.
I just want to address, Owen brought this up before we went live, but you may have seen some people yesterday posting a picture of Aubameyang in a Fortnite competition, which I can assure you is an evil person trying to make that the reason as to why. It is certainly not that, and you would not be seeing the reaction from the players and the club that the way that we have if it was anything like that, I can assure you. So don't buy into people trying to generate a story that doesn't exist. Dawson, Owen says, unpopular opinion, I would start Partey and El Neni against United game because obviously they played against United last time and did really well. Instead of the wonderful Saka. So what do you think about that?
I can see what you're saying because it worked so well the last time, but what I will say is that a lot's changed since then, and I think going into this game, it's all about form and momentum. And I think that, like, even somebody put in the question earlier on, I hope I'm not jumping on the one that you were going to ask, but about who you would start on the left-hand side if Aubameyang wasn't, whether Martinelli or Pepe. And although I massively favour Gabriel Martinelli in that position, you probably have to say Pepe because Martinelli hasn't played a lot of minutes and he did quite well on the left the other night. So it's all about momentum for me. And I think that taking Granit Xhaka out for El Neni would basically be like spitting in his face because he's been very he's been very good of late. You know, you have to give the guy credit even if he is a bit of an asshole.
No, as I said, I don't really like the guy, but I can appreciate what he does as a footballer on the pitch. James P, I'll take this one quickly. He says, what's going on with Ceballos? Does he have a place in the team at the moment? He is injured. He's got an issue and that's why he's not really getting many minutes. But you have to say, when he does get back fit, it's tricky to see where he comes back in right now of how good Xhaka and Partey have been. So arguably you could say there's maybe a place for him if Emile Smith-Rowe is injured and he's a possible kind of advanced number 8 that you could play there. But he's changed so much during his time at Arsenal that I'm not sure if he could play in that position, but we'll have to wait and see. But he did do very well against Brighton, I remember, when he played, and West Brom. He was excellent against West Brom. So there is a place if he does get back fit and we have the space available for him. This is a good question, Adam. Dubo20 says, we are 8th now, but every team above us, other than I think there's one other team that doesn't, has a lot of games in hand over us. Do you think this position is giving us false hope in the league?
I'm going to say yes, because yesterday I looked at the table and saw that we were maybe 3 points off of 5th, and I said, top 4.com. So yeah.
4 points off Liverpool.
Yeah. So I said, yeah, fair enough. It definitely is giving us false hope. I hadn't even considered the games in hand that other teams have. So when it all balances out, we'll probably end up being maybe, I don't know, 9th, 10th, which is probably going to be a better barometer of where we are, because I do believe we'll end up finishing 7th, round about there. That being said, though, I do think that the fans will, or the teams playing each other, will take points off each other because this is one of those crazy, wacky seasons.
Yeah, I want to just look at the table quickly. I know we shouldn't, because we just talked about games in hand. But you've got a lot of teams around us, and what people kind of think about is sometimes people consider games in hand as just wins, immediate wins, as if they've already won them. Like they've already got 3 points. That's no guarantee. Liverpool's form this season is horrific. So even if they were to win their single game in hand over us, they'd still be 7 points away. And there's no guarantees that they do, which is crazy considering the start that we've had to the start of the season. Everton have 3 games in hand. If they were to win all of those, would go joint top with Man City, who themselves would then have a game in hand over Everton. What also you have to think about is that the games in hand aren't necessarily a great thing, and they're there for a reason because of the postponements of fixtures, which is only going to congest these teams' fixtures going forwards, which will make rotation more necessary. It's going to make them more difficult to win, and it's going to have a bigger impact on their stamina and fitness and fatigue. Arsenal have been very fortunate to not really be affected so far this season by any postponements in that regard. So I think you should look at this as a positive thing, that we've got 20 games done. We've got the points that we've got, and we'll just push on playing the games that we need to, and fingers crossed none of them need to get postponed. These outbreaks have seemingly since kind of Christmas died down a bit, and you're not really seeing anywhere near the amount of kind of positive tests, touch wood, within the team so far. So I think it's not necessarily false hope. I'm not as far ahead as that. I think that, as Arteta and Saka were saying after the game, you just need to take every game as it comes. Keep winning. You've seen what's happened to City after they've won so many games in a row that they've shot up to arguably title favourites again. So we will look ahead after the game against United and see where we place with arguably the hardest game of the next 4 with that game against United on Saturday. That is going to round off today's show. I don't know if there's going to be another one. My shift starts at 2, at which point I'm on to 11. So there won't be a show after 2. But if Erdegaard is signed before 2, I will endeavour to try and get on and chat to you guys about it, but who knows? It's been seemingly, I thought it was going to be done on Monday. It's now Wednesday. It could not be done till Thursday. We don't know what's going on really, but there's signs that it is imminent and just ready to get done. Thank you, Owen. Much appreciate your time this morning and jumping on after a long shift last night. Were you back in at what, 4 a.m? So incredible thing.
Yeah, commitment, bro. Commitment.
You want to tell me where to find you and what you're going to be up to?
Yeah, you can find me there at Eoin Young AFC on Twitter, and you can come over to the Gooners podcast. I think Andy and Mike are doing a podcast on Thursday, and then I think I'm doing a United preview on Thursday evening as well, so jump over and check that out.
There you go. We had Mike on yesterday on Let's Talk Arsenal as well, which was done before the Southampton game, but we didn't talk about the game at all. We talked about lots of other stuff regarding transfers. So there's another show for you to listen to, which is not impacted by yesterday's game in any way. So make sure you go and check that one out. And Adam, thank you very much as well, mate, for coming on this morning. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to?
Yeah, you can find me at the Fifth Official at TFO Show on Twitter or on the Football Terrace. Every so often after Arsenal games, you can hear me trying to keep it honest and real. trying your hardest, it's fair to say. Thank you so much to everyone that's listened today in the live chat. There is a link in the description for our Let's Talk Arsenal sponsors football prizes. There is only 16 tickets left
for you to possibly win a signed Thierry Henry shirt with a certificate of authentication. So if you would like to get your hands on that from our fantastic sponsors, Football Prizes, then go check it out. As I say, 16 tickets left. It runs out on Friday. We will reveal which member has won the free ticket on Friday's Let's Talk Arsenal show. So make sure you get one before they go, and they do worldwide shipping. So wherever you are in the world, you can still win it. We will see you again very soon, maybe very, very soon if Odegaard is announced. If not, I'll talk to you tomorrow where there'll be a show. On Friday, I'm chatting to Kevin Campbell at 2 o'clock at UK time afternoon. So make sure you tune in for that before the Let's Talk Arsenal show at 5 o'clock and the preview show ahead of the Man United game. It's going to be busy, but we're going to get through it all. We will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.